Hi, and a couple of weeks ago I was asked to do a video on Warcraft logs using this Retribution Paladin as a guinea pig. Now I've done these before and perhaps it's time I did one again, but although I'll certainly go through some help with Warcraft logs that were linked to me, I'm not going to have this video be a guide on Warcraft logs. I think I ought to do one in more detail, probably using my own logs as well. But what I am going to do in this video is to analyse this Retribution Paladin's damage and come up with some suggestions for improvement. Apologies for the delay, by the way. The message was posted a couple of weeks ago, but I only saw it just before Christmas as it was in my spam box. I guess I'll need to check that more frequently if requests such as these are going to come in. Now I'm going to do this video in three distinct parts. The first part will be a general discussion on the reasons why your damage may not be as high as you'd like. The second part will focus on the logs provided by the player in question, and the third will be a video analysis. As there are these three distinct parts, I've put timestamps to each in the description below if you want to navigate straight to one without seeing the others. So when people contact me with concerns about their damage, it's mostly centered around two things. One, their damage is subpar within their raid group. Now this is something that can and indeed should be addressed. We're not going to be brought along for our blessing of protection very often, so you need to be able to kick out the damage. Or two, their damage is high within their raid group but percentiles are low. Now, there may well be some issues to address. After all, no one plays it perfectly. We can all learn from someone else how to do it better, but it may equally be down to things outside of your control. Now, I'm going to go through the 6 factors which influence your damage and about which you can do nothing. Now, this isn't going to include whether you pad or not. Padding is something which you can control. Whether it's advisable depends. Obviously, if you are padding on progress, that's very bad because you're scuppering the chances of killing the boss for everyone else in the raid group as well as yourself. If you're padding on farm and everyone's cool with it, then that's fine. If you just want to go for percentiles, you want to go for ranks, no problem at all, as long as it's not adversely affecting the enjoyment of other people. But these are factors about which you can do nothing. So number 1, fight duration. If the fight ends just after Crusade does, great. If it ends just before Crusade becomes available, sad panda. Basically, when you have used your last Crusade of the fight, every second extra that fight lasts, the more damage you are losing, or in terms of overall DPS figure, which is what the percentile is based on. 2, legendaries. If you have both the cloak and the good ring, Liadrin's Fury Unleashed, you are in great shape. Almost all top passes are from people with the cloak, with many having both the cloak and the ring. A smaller number just have the ring. There are not too many without either, though there are some. That being said, you don't want to be hiding behind the RNG of legendaries for poor performance, but do know that you are limited without the good ones. Of course, when patch 7.1.5 comes out, there's access to more good ones, so it might even itself out a little bit more. 3, people dying. Now, you don't want too many people dying because it will affect the fight duration. However, a nicely timed Retribution proc or two, especially if it coincides with Crusade, will do wonders for your DPS. 4, assignment. Not all Retribution Paladins do the same job on fights. Having an assignment that means less movement and more AoE will inevitably be better than one that means running around like a blue-ass fly and single targeting mobs. 5, gear. In Legion especially, your item level is not an accurate indicator of the quality of your gear. 2 people may have the same item level, but say one has a high item level Ashbringer and the 2 BIS trinkets for various fights, and the others had bad luck with trinkets and relics and ended up with above average mastery on their gear as well, then there will be inevitable gulf between them. And number 6, greater blessing of might damage. I've left this until last because it's gasping its last. When patch 7.1.5 hits, it will be gone, hopefully forever. However, in the meantime, you were dependent for a significant proportion of your damage on 3 other people in the raid. If you are consistently one of the very top damage dealers, then you are not likely to get much from Blessing of Might. Similarly, if you don't have 3 DPS in your raid who consistently boss the damage time after time, then it is impossible for you to be confident when dishing them out. Ideally, of course, you will have 3 excellent quality Shadow Priests in your guild, but maybe you don't. And maybe it's 3 different people who keep beasting the damage from time to time, and you haven't got a clue to put it on. Now, as an example of things that can be sort of outside your control and have such a large effect, here's a mythic Guam fight I did last night. Awful percentile. And not a fight where you can pad as such, so in theory should be a level playing field. However, we still have Raiders AFK for Christmas and New Year, so we took 2 social, 1 from Scrubbusters, not even our own guild, and still had the 20th slot empty. The fight duration as a result was pretty awful. Essentially, there are 2 applications of Crusade in this fight. For every second, as I've said before, that the fight lasts beyond the second Crusade ending, a Retribution Paladin's damage is diminishing, and this one lasted beyond Berserk. In addition, a stroke of luck occurred. Someone died just as I was using my second Crusade. Great, I thought. An extra 20% damage. Unfortunately, here's what happened.
There we go.
So that's a better time to die. Hang on, you're out of range.
He did that on purpose.
So being out of range meant I didn't get the buff. So what would have happened with a full strength team and if I were in range for that death? Well, looking at logs, during that 20 seconds, I did 21.65 million damage. So an extra 20% of that would have been an extra 4.33 million damage. Now let's say the fight took 3.5 minutes instead. So if I condense on the Warcraft log, which I'm not showing you on here, but I've done this before. The damage I did in 3.5 minutes was 106.98 million. So if I add on the 4.33 million to get 111.31 million, divide that by the 210 seconds that is 3.5 minutes, and I get a DPS figure of 530 million. That is well inside the orange percentiles of respectability. Massive difference. And based on what? Based on if we had our best team there to get a decent kill time, and based on that person still dying, but being in range of me. And they're only a few yards out of range. Little things like that, totally outside of your control, but can make a massive, massive difference to your percentiles. So these are the logs. So the first things I tend to look at, we'll click on the correct person, of course, is buffs first of all. Now, as you do so much of your damage during Crusade, it's a good idea to make sure that it's been done properly. So what I'm looking for, first of all, okay, I can see that you've got the Eye of Command trinket. You've sort of kept that up all the time, so no arguments there. Also got faulty countermeasure. That's coinciding with Crusade there, so that's good. Actually looks from your Crusade like, unfortunately, you don't have the relic extends it. But you can't do anything about that. Potion of Old War is also being used to coincide with Crusade, so there isn't really any issue there. The other thing to look at, Retribution, of course, is one of those things I said you can't really do anything about. It's a little unfortunate that it didn't coincide with Retribution. Now, I am going to sort of point out something when we do the video. I did have a little look back at the video, and I was sort of screaming for Crusade to be used here, but then I understand why it wasn't when I paid more attention. But more about that when we do the video. And I can see that Shield of Vengeance has been used as well as Eye for an Eye. Although Eye for an Eye could have been used again. But you don't get very much damage from it if we have a look here. In fact, you didn't get any damage from it, so never mind. Even when you do, it's like really, really a small amount. So in terms of buffs, they are being handled well. There is no issue with those at all. So what I'm just going to have a look at now is Judgment debuff uptime. So this time we're looking at enemies. There's only one enemy up there, so I don't need to say exactly who that should be. All sources. Room. Doesn't look like it's off for extended periods of time. It is curious that, let's have a look here, 206, 209. There are times when you're sort of able to keep it up most of the time, and then others where it seems to be more of a struggle. So I'm just going to have a look at here is, we'll just check mine, just for comparison. Because you can't keep judgment up all the time, of course. And what's most important is that when the judgment debuff isn't up, that you're not using Templar's Verdicts. So the key thing is that you're using it to buff your Templar's Verdicts. So let's have a look. That was 3 minutes 33. Let's find a similar fight length. These are mythic, of course, but that one's a little longer. Because fight length obviously has a factor as well. So if I do the same thing, enemies, debuffs. Now this one there are more. I'm just focusing on Ursoc really. So Ursoc, Judgment. And I'm just interested in mine. So the gaps don't look any larger on yours, do they? There's maybe the odd one that's a little larger. But again, if you're using that time to build, it doesn't really matter. You only need judgment on when you're about to spend. So there's nothing untoward there either. We've not got any concerns there. The other one to have a look at is resources. How is your holy power production? So again, we're just interested in this character. So the wasted column is really what we're looking at. And in terms of how much is being gained, this looks perfectly decent to me. 155 holy power gained over the course of a 3.5 minute fight. Absolutely fine. Wasted. The Wake of Ashes you can't really help, having some waste on there. Obviously, we ideally don't want to be getting any holy power wasted. Blade of Justice or especially Crusader Strike. These two Crusader Strikes mean you use those when you're on 5 holy power. And these ones mean you either use Blade of Justice 3 times when you're on 4 holy power, or maybe once when you're on 5 and once when you're on 4. But I mean, again, you know, if this happens during Crusade, when it's all, especially with heroism going at the same time, which is towards the end, it's all a bit. Let's see. Was it during that period? No, one of them was. This is the other thing we can do. We can zoom in on different parts of the fight. So if we look at the start, I'd expect most of the mistakes to... There's no, oh no, you did actually pretty well on the opening, not wasting holy power there. So where did they occur? Was it a particular part of the fight? Wake of Ashes I'm not concerned with at all. I mean, only 2 in the whole course of the fight. I mean, you're not going to argue with that. That's just... Must have been in this section somewhere. Yeah. Okay. Probably try and avoid that wastage when it's outside. You know, during Crusade, sometimes you can get ahead of yourself. Abilities come off cooldown so quickly that you're just firing away at them, and you know they're going to come down quickly as well. So it's not a major problem. It's not ideal, but these sort of things can happen. Whereas outside of Crusade, when you don't have all that massive amounts of haste, you want to try and be a little bit more careful. But again, I mean, what we're talking about, 5 holy power, that is the equivalent of not quite 2 Templar's Verdicts. If we have a look at the old damage here, Templar's Verdict did an average of 250,000. So you're talking less than 500,000 damage. If we looked at the total amount of damage done in the entire fight, 74.53. So 500,000 damage is not going to make any great changes there. So we're not really worried about that. Now let's have a look at the start of the fight. So for that we can click on casts. And what I'll do, I'll sort of summarise by going through what we can do on all of these things. Now another little option on Warcraft log. So we can look at casts, and if we click timelines, we can actually see what you cast at what time and what order. So we can see here, obviously, you've macroed Crusade and your Trinket together, faulty countermeasure, which is sensible. The only time when you wouldn't do that is if you had multiple relics that extend Crusade or Avenging Wrath, in which case you might want to delay the macro here a bit. So what we're looking at here, you've opted for the using Wake first of all, followed by sort of Judgment and then Spenders, which is fine. Some people do that. Now, what I would say here, the way Crusade works, specifically, of course, is that you start off with a small amount of damage increase Unless you get the belt and it's patch 7.15, in which case, I hate you. Unless I have it by then, in which case I'm not fussed about you. But you gain more the more holy power you spend. So you want to be spending holy power really quickly. And as you spend more of that holy power, your haste is going up as well. So you're not really worrying about Blade of Justice and Crusader Strike coming off cooldown, because they'll be coming off cooldown really rapidly anyway. So what you've done here, so you used Wake of Ashes, so you're on 5 holy power. You've used those at the same time you've used Judgment before you spend it. Okay, great. So you've used that. So you're now down to 2 holy power. You used a Crusader Strike, you're up to 3. But you've not spent. You've built again to get to 5. Now, if you'd have spent here to get to, again, you're on 3 holy power, you've spent again. You've just suddenly gone up another 7.5% haste, as well as a 7.5% damage increase, rather than delaying it. So what you really want to do while you're building your stacks of Crusade, you want to be spending as soon as you've got holy power to do it. In fact, I would argue all the way through Crusade, because the thing is, once you've built to full stacks, you've got a lot of haste. The reason why this sequence, if we forget about Crusade, this is a sensible sequence to use. The reason why we build where we can before spending is because, let's say it's a normal sequence and we spend here, and then use Blade of Justice, you might get to yourself to a position where you haven't got enough holy power to spend, and you haven't got any builders off cooldown either. But that's not going to happen during Crusade, once you've built to full stacks. So the rule under Crusade, generally speaking, is spend when you can. When you've got 3 holy power, spend. And just keep doing that. The only things you're focusing on, this actually helps. I did this in my opening Retribution DPS video, I think. The thing that helps focus you when you have got this mad amount of haste is you're focusing on several things. First of all, is the Judgment debuff active on your target? If not, then you get it up there. Secondly, do you have 3 holy power or more? If yes, spend. If no, use a builder. And that's the way that it's a simple priority during Crusade. So that'd be a little thing there. There's probably several little things we can talk about. The gaps between them doesn't look too bad. There's a few things where I'm looking like that seems to be a slightly larger gap, I think, because remember, these aren't on the global cooldown. So you've used Wake of Ashes, there'll be global cooldown, but it doesn't look too bad. I mean, what's that? 1.2 seconds, and then it's like 2.5 seconds. It's not excessive. It's over a second, but, it's not disastrous. I mean, the gaps look sort of okay as I move along here. So the rate at which you're using your abilities generally looks okay, but it is just that you want to spend when you can to build up those stacks as quickly as possible. And then once you've built the stacks up as quickly as possible, okay, you don't need to spend as soon as you can to build the stacks up, but you do want to be spending because you know the builders are going to be there when you need them as well. So what I would generally be saying is there's not any real problems. Click back on tables, want to see something useful. Shield of Vengeance. So you cast it twice, but you only got 1 hit off it. Again, I'll go through on the video if I see this, but one thing with Shield of Vengeance on Ursoc doesn't work on normal, but it does work on heroic. So what you generally want to do is to get him to burst the Shield of Vengeance with a roar, not with the charge. The problem with the charge is you can sort of get knocked out of the way and it can blow up, but not in melee range of the boss, and then you don't do any damage with it at all. But when he does his roar, he leaves behind the purple shit. So what I tend to do is, if the roar doesn't burst it, stand around in the purple shit until that does burst it, obviously in melee range of the boss, and then move out of it. Because you're not taking any damage while your shield's still up anyway. And as soon as it's burst, then move out of it. You're still not going to take a significant amount of damage off it. But it looks okay. There is no major cause for concern if we look at, this fight. Now, just to highlight a few things I've been saying. I mean, this, you can see here you are doing more damage than most. It's a 3.5 minute fight, which is not a terrible kill time. It's not ideal. Percentile-wise, it might not be as brilliant as you would like, because if we look here, this percentile, you're up against arseholes like me, who We'll be still doing heroics for legendaries most weeks. And obviously we're getting, even though we'll take alts and stuff like that, we're not absolutely beasting it. We are nonetheless taking mostly mains and therefore getting pretty rapid kills. If we look at the Ursoc, I'll have to click back to heroic here, won't I? So you got, I mean, we've got below 2 minutes even with some of these, which is a pain in the ass. This is ideal, 2 minutes 18. I don't know why I didn't do better then. But you can see here, I mean, these are much shorter kill times than you're getting. And then you might look at this and you think, well, even for my item level, it's not that good. Again, issue is, in this raid, for example, if I just pick on one here, because I'll bet you, I'm not looked this up in advance, we will have, so what's your item level on this log? I know it's a bit better now, I've been having a look, 878. We will have people on that item level or below, not loads, but the odd one. Oh, an 874, I'm saved. Because the occasional alt will come along, or social or something like that, to fill up the raid. So they're going to get a stunning item, because they're getting our kill time, rapid kill time, but lower item level. So they'll get a stunning item level percentile as well. So the item level percentile doesn't tell you what you might think it does either. So don't worry too much about percentiles, as I said before. Now let's have a look at the video.
I don't know how many times you wait on dragons on normal.
I'm just sorry. I'm just going to pause it there. I just want to check something. I'm just going to go back. Can I go back? How easily can I go back on this thing?
4, 3.
That's a good sign,
I
right?
don't even know.
Oh, you trust your guild mates not to ninja pull. You popped your potion dead on one there.
Last time.
Right, so let's have a look.
Kind of sad. They stacked a lot
Now,
of monks.
if I just have a look here, in terms of what you're tracking, you're tracking cooldowns. I can see that. I can't see where you're tracking the judgment debuff on your target. Like, the game is tracking it for you up here. So you've got your enemy bar in the standard Blizzard position. But I'm not seeing anywhere that's around here, which is presumably where your focus is, because you've set it up, you know, around, you've set things up around your character, which is certainly what I would suggest anyway. You've got your cooldowns there, some more cooldowns there. You've got your abilities there. You've got that personal resource monitor thing down there. You've got important timers down there. So this is clearly where your focus is, but you're not tracking the debuff of the boss. Now, you seem to have reasonable uptime on it, so I'm guessing it's not a disaster. But in a situation like when it's not a single target fight like this, and you're swapping ads a lot, I don't think you would be able to quickly and easily see if you've got the judgment debuff up or how long there is to go on it. Particularly important during Crusade, because let's just, how many stacks of Crusade have you got? Can I see that here? Because you're not really tracking that either. So you don't know when you're on full stacks.
One out of like.
Right, you're on full stacks now. So I'm just going to... I can't see what abilities you're using at any one time. This is the problem. So I'm just going to look down here for when you next use Judgment. Right, Judgment's fading off the boss here. Right, you've used it again, so that's fine. No problem there. Now, it'll come off cooldown much more quickly.
Oh,
Yeah, he's shot. Right. Actually, I will just go... Can I go back very slightly? Very slightly. A little bit more. I'm trying not to go back loads. So just before the charge. So he's about to do the charge.
We worked our way up.
You can't see it down here. It was up there, I think. It wasn't shown down here. So in your main eye line, where it appeared you had an important timers, it wasn't there. And the result is this. The bear has charged over there, and you're stuck here. Now, obviously, you can't get in the way. I'm guessing it's not your turn to take the charge, so you certainly don't want to get in its way. But what you really wanted to be was to the side of it, over here, so that you can more quickly get into melee range of it.
Oh yeah, but
At this point, of course, you can be stood right under his bollocks, because the next charge will be yours to take. Ideally, of course, as melee, we will always be behind the boss. Ursoc's sure position, you have to be careful that you don't take a charge when you're not supposed to, so sometimes that can't always be helped. You tend to be at his front a bit more. But as soon as it's going to be your turn to charge on the next one, you can stand under his arsehole, no problem. So you are sort of stood towards his back here, so that's not so bad. Now, that crusade's gone. I was going to look at something else, sorry. I'm spending a lot of time on this. I've gone back too far, have I? It's about to fade.
We worked our
Let me
way
just
up
try
from there.
something. Let's check. Oh, you were out of range anyway. So what I was going to check for is not going to be there. So I'll leave that there for a bit. See if we can see anything else. But so far, I'd be saying about positioning.
people a lot lower is going higher than it does in a single target.
Now, Roaring Cacophony. Here it is. Have you used your Shield of Vengeance on that? You have. Because that's another thing you're not checking. You're not tracking the absorb left on your Shield of Vengeance. You're not actually tracking that Shield of Vengeance is even active. You're sure you're tracking the cooldown? I think. Although the fact that it's faded just means presumably it's not available for use. It doesn't seem to have a timer on it, so you don't know when it's coming back up either. So I would admit, if you're using Tell Me When for these, I use Tell Me When. Put timers on them. Like you've got a timer on your Crusade, you know when that's coming back up. You should also have it for certainly this one. There's quite a few I would have as well. Rebuke. I would have it for all of them, just as default.
You gotta watch out for those monks.
Now, this is the purple shit, and you're moving out of it, but your Shield of Vengeance is still up. And you've moved out of it. So that Shield of Vengeance now, unless this roar happens to burst it just about in time, it did. That was fortunate. Wouldn't necessarily have done that. But maybe that was the one that did blow up. So let's look. Let's wait to see when you use it again.
4, 3, 2, 1.
What happened there?
He likes me today.
Again, you hang on. So you're there because it's your turn to get charged. You're out there, and you're waiting around for him to come
He
back.
likes me today.
Why didn't you run towards him and carry on hitting him? That'd be something I'd say there. And again, you don't need to be at his head like this, unless you've got some other reason for being there. If it's just to avoid that charge towards the side is okay. I know if you don't necessarily trust people to position really accurately, and it's better to do this than to be around the side and get hit and cop for that momentum. Although if you've got Divine Intervention, it might not matter because that will just proc instead. I think it will anyway. Doesn't always. I'm waiting for this Shield of Vengeance. Where's your Shield of Vengeance on your UI? Right, which button is it? Oh, I can't see it. Oh, it's there. So there's 12 seconds before it comes back. Just going to move that out of the way. Right, your Crusade's back up as well. Now, I notice you're not using it yet. That's fine, that's good. Because, of course, you can only use it once more. And you might as well use it at a more favourable time. So it's sensible to do that, not always to use it off cooldown. Even on a pure single target boss. Hold on. You've used it again. There's that. Right, Shield of Vengeance. So you've consumed it on the charge. And what's happened there is, we'll just wait for it. It's burst when he's knocked you away. Which is why I wouldn't use it on the charge. There you go, it's burst over there and the boss isn't there. You don't want to use it on the charge. You want to use it on the raw, and as I say, if the raw doesn't consume it, stand in the purple shit until it does consume it. Now, the other thing is this. First time I watched this video, before I've sort of done this, I just want to catch something else. Right, someone has died, and I can see in your buff section the Retribution passive. This fella, Gollus or something. Now, there's a couple of things here. First of all, that's another thing you're not tracking. I have a big icon comes up about here when that happens, because that means that I'm going to be dealing extra damage. And if there's anything I can do about that, let's say I'm in the situation where I've got my second of Crusade ready to use. Sometimes I'll hold on to it for a little bit, just in case something fortuitous like that happens. And then as soon as that happens, I'm popping it, because that's 20% extra damage. I was wondering why you didn't. Then I sort of paid attention. It's because you haven't used heroism yet. Your guild is waiting for the 30%. I don't think they need to. When you get to the boss on easy farm, you're actually better off just using it at the start. The reason you use it on 30% generally is because, first of all, the execute classes will get more out of it, but most classes are not execute classes, so, you know, you lose as well as gain. But the other reason is because there's more intense healing required, and it also helps the healers. But when your raid is on top of it, unless the healers still feel they need heroism at the end, then there's no DPS reason to use it at the end. So yeah, at this point I was thinking, oh my god, that Retribution's ticking away. You've got your Crusade, you're not using it, but yeah, it's because you're waiting for heroism. Although, it's not a guarantee that you'd be better off. In some ways you might.
Hero, please.
And there it is. So there you've used it. Let's just have a look how you're doing. Yeah, so you built to 5 holy power again, rather than just keep spending. Spend. I mean, it might be, because I can see people's health going down a lot, that your healers do really want that heroism still. I doubt, you know, in which case, you know, fair enough. But yeah, for Crusade, you want to spend as soon as you can. I keep looking up there, because actually I don't like this personal resource monitor. It's too faint to see the holy power on it, and you've got your numbers flying across it. So I don't believe that you can see how much holy power you've got very easily either. That's another issue there. So that's what I can sort of tell from the video. It's really useful when you do videos of yourself, so you can see these things. And if people are interested in me analysing their results, logs are really good. I can also tell quite a bit from replays as well, the replay function on Warcraft logs. But a video as well is also brilliant, because there's several things in there that maybe I'd have been able to sort of look on the replay, but it's much more, it's much easier to see it here, especially the way you've got your UI set up and things like that. Now, on the legendaries front, I do note I've looked up the armory for this player, and I note that he has got Liadrin's Fury Unleashed now, so should be in better shape. It's not going to be one of the best legendaries when the next patch hits, but it's still a legendary that deals extra damage, so it's still going to be good. So presumably the next passes are going to look a lot better. But hopefully with the other suggestions I've thrown in there, it can be better still. But I hope you found that useful, and I hope everyone else found it interesting as well. And if you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share as always. And until next time, I'll see you later.